I think a new team has arrived in the AFC West, and their name is the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah.
Herbert stops, launches deep. Jalen Guyton, he's got it!
Herbert fires open, making the grab. Mike Williams down the sideline. On the 17-yard line, look out again. Carr, intercepted.
We're back with another episode of the Shock Therapy Podcast. It's 6:20 in the morning. I didn't think you were gonna get up, man, but
I made it.
I got so much to talk about because I was livid after this game last night, and I'm just going crazy because it's got to be the first thing we talk about. Justin Herbert goes down with an injury to the rib area, to the non-throwing side of his rib cage, and we're down 10 points with like 3 minutes and like 2 timeouts. What are we doing here? Like, it's week 2 against a really good Chiefs defense, and you have a long way to come back. The guy's throws are getting a little sporadic. He has the dime to Carter right at the end there to show that he can fight through anything. But it's week 2, and you're going into a period where you get 10 days off to try to get your quarterback healthy again, and he's in a lot of pain. What are we doing here?
Well, to me, it's like that was just like you had so many times before that moment to go win and seal the game, and you didn't. And so that was like your last chance. It was like, but at that point, it's a little too late. Like, I understand you want to like fight and claw till the last second. But a minute 20 against the Chiefs in Arrowhead, down 2 scores, it is one of the most unachievable tasks that you can try to attempt. And so, like you're saying, week 2.
I disagree with that. I still think you can go win the game if you get that onside kick that they actually had a real opportunity to get. You can go win that game. But this is week 2, and your season is on the line with your quarterback who ends up taking another hit. Like the first play he comes back in, and I'm going, this guy, if he gets like legitimately hurt or this thing starts to linger throughout the season, that's going to affect the entire season. Take the L, or go to your backup, Chase Daniel, and have him help you win the game. I get that Justin Herbert is a freak player who does things nobody else can do. But like, this guy's in a lot of pain and barely able to play. Well, that extra hit, did that not set him back? This could have been a 2-week injury that now stretches out 6 to 8 weeks or more if he takes on more hits. Because, like, as a quarterback, the rib injury is so weird because you feel it in different throws. You can play through it. I think I broke my ribs. I broke 2 of my ribs back in high school. I taped a thigh pad to my rib every game, and I just played out throughout the season. And I swear, every single time I hit that ground, I felt it. But you could play through that. But as a quarterback, like, you use those muscles around that rib area. And I mean, some throws you'll feel it, some you don't. And the ones that you'll feel it, you won't feel it until you're halfway through the throwing motion. And then you like twitch or you like twerk or whatever every time you feel that pain there. And that's going to throw that accuracy off. And you saw he was pretty sporadic on some of those throws.
Well,
so I just don't know what we're doing here.
That's why I guess 10 points with that amount of time with a healthy quarterback of Justin Herbert's caliber, totally doable. But down 10 with that amount of time with a quarterback who's obviously more hurt than you've ever seen him before, that to me made it insurmountable, because to me, this is the ultimate game of what ifs. We had so many chances. And the Chiefs kind of just hung out on the ropes, let us tire ourselves out throwing haymakers, and they just kind of came in at the last second. But the what ifs, what if Keenan Allen played? What if no injuries across the offensive line? What if Corey Linsley and Rashawn Slater finished this game? What if, those two interceptions? Trey Pipkins, sorry. What if
don't go ahead and put that out there. That's false advertising.
But what if, those two interceptions aren't dropped? What if those other two interceptions aren't thrown horrible flags? Like what if? There's so many what ifs that we just kind of let get away from us. And when you're playing a team like the Chiefs, you can't let those what ifs happen. You got to take advantage of what you can control. And I thought we kind of let it get away from us at times. What if Brandon Staley was Brandon Staley of last season? Who is this new Brandon Staley?
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. Brandon Staley, 4th and Staley, has not really shown itself in the certain situations you'd expect them to. I mean, last year, if you were across the 50 and there was 2 yards to go on 4th down, Staley's going for it. And then somebody else on Twitter, I was talking about it, was like, it's a better defense. Great. Trust them if you don't convert. Like, that was the whole identity of this team last year. And it won us and lost us some game, but we were consistent. It was our identity, and we're going to go and be this team. And then, for whatever reason, this year he's much more conservative in those situations. Like, I don't get it. On 4th and inches, he trots in week 1, he trots out the punt team late to kind of do this little trickery and try to catch them off guard. Granted, we pin them at the 2-3 yard line, but that's not our identity, especially when you're playing a team that's got high powered offense and can go and score points. I mean, we convert one of those, totally different game.
Yeah, absolutely. This one's so such a letdown, because I thought we had them. I thought we played them pretty well. I thought neither team played to 100% of their potential, but it's week 2. So I don't think I was expecting either team to be firing on all cylinders. But I am happy in the fact that this is a good football team that just has a couple things to tweak and fine tune. But we played them right to the wire, a very good Chiefs team. We should have won that game. I thought we played a better football game. They scored more points. At the end of the day, they had a little more resilience than we did. They made the plays when they needed to, and we kind of just dropped the ball there. So I'm really excited for that rematch. I thought this was going to be a split series. I thought it was really difficult to think either one of these teams is going to win 2. So I'm okay with it, just because that means the next meeting is going to be a win. And I'm bringing my dad. There's going to be 2 generations of Alphas in the building. So I need to witness a win next game. And then that next game is probably going to be for the division. So we got a lot going on the line, a lot to fine tune in the meantime. We got this mini bye working into a short part of our schedule. Let's get healthy. Let's fine tune some things, and let's fix this Lombardi offense, because this Lombardi offense through 2 games has been horrible. I thought he's called 1 good quarter out of the 8 so far, and that was quarter 1 of the Raiders game. I don't know what this guy's doing on offense right now. I don't like where our offense looks. It looks out of sync. And we're not letting Justin Herbert be Justin Herbert. It's all play action passing. Why can't we let this guy throw the football, especially when our run game isn't working really well and we're losing bodies on the offensive line?
Yeah, what's going on with the run game? This game, we averaged 3.1 yards per carry. Austin Eckler, 14 for 39. No Isaiah Spiller. Joshua Kelly had 4 carries. Sony Michel had 4 carries. Overall, it's kind of a lackluster. Offensive line just isn't moving the bodies around like we expected them to.
Yeah.
There's a couple of 8, 8, and 7 of long in the game, but overall it's just not consistent enough. We're giving Austin Eckler the touches primarily, but it just isn't panning out. And there's been a couple times where I'm like, so close. You hit that seam, you're gone.
Yeah.
Other times, I mean, Austin Eckler, this is one of the ones that like shocked me. Austin Eckler is taking a carry near like the goal line, thinks he sees something outside, kind of jets out that direction. Defense reacts. This is against the Raiders game. Stays inside though. There's a seam and it's a 99-yard race. So there has been some missed opportunities in the run game in terms of just hitting the right gap. But overall, through 2 games, it's not been a great run game.
Do we even have 100 rushing yards through 2 games? I don't think we do. I feel like we have like 70.
Both were in the 70s.
Yeah.
But last week, it is an improvement from last week. Last week, we were in like 2.4 yards per carry on like 31 attempts. This week, 24 attempts, 3.1. It's improving, but it's still terrible. You got to be around minimum 3.8, ideally 4.8, somewhere around there. But you got to be around the 4s.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and it's a new offensive line. We expected some gelling. Those injuries
it really
up front
isn't. It's the
doesn't
right side is new, but it's all the same players with the exception of Zion.
Yeah, but
and Zion played a hell of a game. Let's talk about Zion Johnson. Literally like locking up Chris Jones. There's a couple lost battles in there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But Chris Jones is probably one of the best bull rushers in the NFL. And Zion anchored down more often than not. It was more of the hand fighting, letting him get around that isn't really Jones' strong suit. But in terms of just anchoring down, digging your cleats in and not giving up ground, Zion is extremely strong and has been more impressive through 2 games than Matt Filer has, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's making the noticeable plays. That one was significant. That one really stood out. And just what a strong, smart player that we have in Zion Johnson. Just seems mature beyond his age. I know he didn't take the Rashawn Slater comparisons very well because he wanted to go and earn them. But I think we are seeing a guy who has a similar work ethic, a guy who is similar in the way that, I'd rather go show you than talk about how good I am. I love that. That's the style of leader that we have here. We don't have the, drill sergeant, hoorah, let's go yell and get you lifted. We got the guys who we'll celebrate a big play, but they're out there for the next one. They're out there for the Super Bowl ring. They're out there leading by example kind of characters. And I kind of like what we're building, but right now we are, I think, a team in limbo. I think a very talented team who does not have its identity yet. And I thought that was a big reason of why we were so successful last year. Is like, this is how we're going to play football. And we came out the gate 4-2. Still very doable. Very doable. We can even improve upon that. I think a 5-1 start, I think, is very, very possible. But you need to go back to your roots. And what worked for us last year was being aggressive and not playing to lose. I felt like we were kind of playing to lose. We were kind of playing intimidated of the Chiefs. And they're just way too damn good. You can't give Patrick Mahomes more opportunities. That guy made some amazing throws, who overall I thought had just an okay game. When Patrick Mahomes has an okay game, you have to win those. Losing an okay game to Patrick Mahomes just hurts so much because we had so many chances to close them out.
Yeah, I mean, he went 24 for 35, 235 yards, 2 touchdowns. Last week, he had 5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And overall, there was I would say 4 to 5 different opportunities for interceptions.
Yeah.
Really, if we convert 2 of those, this is a totally different game. I didn't think that the pass rush was getting there quite as much, but I think that was also because Patrick Mahomes is really good at escaping the pocket.
Yeah.
We really have always struggled to keep him. Every team struggles to keep him inside the pocket and contain him. And I think that's the goal plan. And that's actually what works against Patrick Mahomes is squeeze down the pocket give him no room, make him feel rushed, make him feel like he doesn't have a whole lot of room, make him feel claustrophobic inside of there. But don't let him get out and run around and extend plays, because that's what makes the Chiefs really dangerous, is when the play breaks down and he can get out the pocket, he can throw cross body, he can throw deep downfield. But when he feels pressured, he lofts it up. Ultimately, is what he ends up doing, is he lofts it up kind of high. And those more often than not turn into turnovers, interceptions. Asante Samuel had an outstanding game, like really, really good. Like I can't really talk about just how good Asante was. Click and close, had an opportunity to come with 2 legitimate interceptions. There was another misthrown ball that it looked like, I'd have to look at all 22, but it looked like he was coming in for like another pick if that would have been an accurate throw. That was kind of toward the third quarter.
Yeah.
But defensively, like the Chargers were there to make certain plays. I don't want to blame the refs, but you got to blame the refs a little bit, because there's just some of those penalties that overturned the turnovers were a little questionable. The big one being the Nasir Adderley one. That Nasir Adderley interception is clearly an offensive pass interference.
Yeah, that's awful. It's not one of those things where I think you can't point to one thing in a football game, and always going to the officiating seems to me like one of the biggest cop outs a fan could make. But
this one was really tough.
These were egregious.
It really was.
And it seemed very obvious. Like, how do we keep our favorite player, Patrick Mahomes, from embarrassing himself? And it's like that you can't do that. Like, we're getting the better of Patrick Mahomes. Just you got to let us play. And at the end of the day, I didn't think, I thought the refs kind of had their handprints on it. They're like, this thing's getting out of the hand. I might have to throw a flag. And that's kind of the reaction it was. It seemed very like the NBA playoffs, how they do that, where they officiate teams differently. If a team's getting blown out, you're going to get more calls that way because they want to keep it competitive. It seemed very on brand like that, because it was like, there's no way that's a flag. Because on the other side, there were so many, like, I really thought the Chiefs players, I'm not dirty, but I thought that they took Herbert to the ground a little more often than they should have. I thought he got rid of the ball, and the fact that they were all kind of barreling in on him, landing on him, which I thought was a point of emphasis, not getting called. I thought any of those hits on Herbert late could have been called roughing the passer. None of them were. Tom Brady would have got that call. Aaron Rodgers would have got that call. Pat Mahomes gets those calls.
That's what happens when you're 6'6", though. I mean, take a look at Cam Newton
that we're calling him
all
weird.
The shots he took.
We're calling him weird now because he's different. Like, I just think, I don't know. I don't know. It's such a bummer, because I thought the officiating, I shouted out the officiating last game because I thought it was awesome. I thought this officiating this game was very one-sided. There's awful calls on both sides, but then it got really one-sided there the second half, which I think is obvious. I think it's because the Chargers were building so much momentum. And I just hate that. You got to call the play evenly, let the guys play football. The best team is going to win. I don't think the best team won last night.
No, I mean, if you really look at it, you take away the 52-yard Clyde Edwards-Helaire rush toward the end there that really kind of sealed the game. Like, that put the Chargers away ultimately. You take that 52 yards out, and they were 18 for, 41 yards on the ground. That's a really, really good run defense. Every once in a while, you're going to give up that big play. It just was perfectly blocked up. And honestly, he was running into that gap, hold 2 hands on the ball, just trying to
it was a great
eat
play.
Away some clock. And then all of a sudden, he was left out in the open and took off. But they really averaged something like 2.0 yards per carry. You take the one big play out. So, I mean, we played them very, very well against the run. Kansas City's wide receivers, Travis Kelce, 5 receptions, 51 yards. That is really low stat line for him.
Yeah.
Derwin James really locked him up quite a bit. He got open over the middle of the field often, But in terms of just how far deep downfield, I mean, it's, put your heels on the first down marker and play everything in front of you. And we did that very, very well all game. There was no real big plays outside the Justin Watson touchdown over JC Jackson. Made a really good move. Got JC to bite. JC almost recovered, but it was just a little too late. Really good throw by Patrick Mahomes too. Yeah, that
much you
was,
can do.
But outside of that, I mean, overall, I feel like there was no player on the Chargers defense who had a bad game. Drew Tranquil, has really come into his own. Probably one of the players that benefited the most from having the new front in front of him. And he's been able to just read and react. I really think that he is really improved.
He looks
probably
great.
Most improved player on defense at this point in time, with Asante Samuel kind of, having some good plays, having some bad plays. And I haven't seen almost anything bad from Drew. Maybe the missed tackle on the scramble by Patrick Mahomes that led to the touchdown. But even that, he wasn't even in position to make that tackle and was just trying to get out there and put some pressure on Patrick Mahomes. Overall, Drew has played outstanding.
Drew's looked really good. I think in that game in particular, I thought JC played all right. I wasn't amazed in his debut, but I guess that's expected. First game of the season, has been kind of nursing this injury, hasn't been practicing, so it's going to take him a little bit to get back into the rhythm of things, as kind of expected. But I thought Zont had an amazing game. I didn't see a bad play that game, that Chiefs game. I thought he was on fire. He was getting targeted more than any guy, and I don't remember if there is a couple of receptions he gave up. It wasn't for much. He ended up rallying to get the tackle and had a lot of plays on the ball. A couple should have been picks that just he couldn't get around to. The one that was called dropped where he clearly had his hand underneath it. That guy was out there balling last night, and I'm really excited for his next steps in his development, because I think we have a really, really special player in Asante Samuel Jr. And just wait until JC Jackson gets rolling. This defense is going to be a nightmare. Patrick Mahomes and this Chiefs offense went up against a Cardinals D who was legit, by the way. The Chiefs made them look silly, but the Cardinals are still a very good football team. Going from 5 touchdowns to 500 all-purpose yards of offense to this game, I think really speaks to the defense that we've built. It is significantly improved from last season. Now, I think the offense is starting to sputter and it needs to pick up its part. I also think the special teams that second half was really bad. I thought the first half forcing 4 punts. Tommy Townsend had 4 times the amount of punts as Patrick Mahomes had touchdowns in the first half. 4-1. That's awesome. And you go into halftime with a 3-point lead. Just not taking advantage of the. You got to take advantage of those little glimpse of hopes when you're playing a team like Patrick Mahomes, because you're not going to get many, and they gave us a lot. We just kept giving it back to them.
Yeah, PFF actually has grades up. I already disagree.
Who would have thought?
I already disagree, but I do agree a little bit with some of the grades. So Asante Samuel Jr. was the highest graded defensive player, 87.7. This is just how I disagree. They credit him with 2 pass breakups. I can count 3. You had the 2 interceptions, right? The opportunities for the interceptions. And then in the first quarter, he came up, got his hand on the ball, and made a PBU there. And I'm pretty sure he had one more. So I don't get all of that. In terms of pressures, the player that gave up, he gave up 3 receptions on 6 targets.
That seems low too, but
Joey Bosa had 5 total pressures. Khalil Mack only had 4 and 1 sack. So he's at 4 sacks in 2 games.
2 a game.
And then Drew Tranquil, Morgan Fox, Calvin Noy all had 2 pressures. So In total, they said that the Chargers had 18 total pressures, 1 sack, and only 3 hits on the quarterback, which seems about accurate. Your other highest graded defensive players, Joey Bosa, 83.9, Khalil Mack, 72.9. I didn't think Atito played all that well. I thought there was more the other defensive tackles, but maybe I need to go back and watch some film. But Atito's in there with a 71.2. And then going over the offensive side of the ball, we got to talk about Mike Williams. Like, wow.
Yeah.
What a comeback game for this guy.
Absolute weapon.
So how do you think that he played? Like, it felt like we were playing him very similar to how we played him week 1 last year, week 2 last year, right? Because of the hot start. Like, I thought it was really nice to see Mike Williams have that bounce back game for sure.
Bounce back game, and then not the typical what we have envisioned Mike Williams to be kind of game. He was running routes. He was making contested catches. And I didn't realize this. He is the best receiver since he's entered the league with receptions and catches where you got a guy close, a guy who could make a play. Mike Williams just makes the play more often than not, which is an incredible skill to have when you're that size. And his route running is getting better. He's figuring out the cerebral part of, anchoring down in the zone to find those sweet spots, connect with Justin Herbert. They're on a different level right now than the other receivers on this roster. You look at it, 10 targets, 8 catches, 113 yards, definitely on the same page. And you go down the line, Gerald Everett also had 10 targets, 6 catches. One of those incompletions was the dagger, that pick six at the goal line. Just not a great throw, but also just made the wrong decision. And if you look back at it, Gerald Everett was absolutely gassed at the end of that play. He had a big play to get him down there. And before that play, before they decided to go no tempo, he's yelling at the sideline, "Get me out of here, get me out of here." And they're like, "We're going tempo." And you could see it in his face. He puts his mouthpiece in and he kind of just like lets off a shrug, but you could just hear him saying, and just like, "Okay, here we go." And he lines up, he runs a half-ass route. And I'm not trying to blame Gerald Everett. It was just miscommunication on both sides. Coaching staff should have seen that.
Well, I also thought it was a bad throw on top of that, because
it was a bad play on top of it. Rushed. You don't need to rush.
Yeah,
you don't need to rush in that point. I get trying to make
even that,
advantage.
like, you're running an out and he's throwing inside, like, that's, you typically want to place that low and away from the defender, and I felt like that was high. And
it was a bad throw, but it was a bad throw. And I think the point of all of that is I thought that decision was a little rushed. I get wanting to make an advantage, take an advantage, and not let KC get its goal line deep set up. But in the same vein, you have to have enough time to get your offense set up. I did not think we had enough time to call the right play, to make the right reads, and so at that point, you take a timeout, you take the full 40-second play clock to get your guys in, to get the personnel in, to get the right play called. I thought that decision was just a little rushed at a pivotal time. You don't need to be rushing. We got plenty of time here, folks.
Well, I think you're rushing because you're trying to keep the defense off balance. I mean, that was what this offense was built around. This is what Joe Lombardi's offense has kind of been, is, keep the tempo up. Don't let the defense get into a groove. You control the tempo. You control the game. Yeah. But even like, I think, granted, yeah, he's asking to come off the field, but you got to get your conditioning up at some point, right? Like,
sure,
it's week 2, but you're in Kansas City, which isn't known for being high elevation. So you're not like dying for that reason. You had 2 plays go your way. You were tired. Suck it up, man. Put it out there. Like, it's not an injury related type of like issue. It's like a I'm tired issue. Yeah. Well, you're literally running a 2-yard speed out. Like,
yeah, I still think, like, I understand the tempo part of it, and I still think, though,
you're losing kind of that element of surprise.
Right, you're running tempo
taking that away.
you're running tempo to create disadvantage, like you said, on the defense. But I thought
you're looking for those
we
mismatches.
We rushed so fast that I thought it was a disadvantage to us more than it was a disadvantage to them because we weren't ready. And so they seemed ready. Like they were a lot more prepared for that play than we were. I thought. So that's kind of where I was at. The tempo didn't work for what its purpose was, and its purpose was to create an advantage for us. I thought it did the opposite.
Gerald Everett's really come into his own as well. I think that he's become like
he's slippery,
a vital player to this offense. I mean, the run after catch ability in itself. You look at week 1 where Justin Herbert's foot's getting pulled and he catches it and comes off of almost kind of like a pick. It wasn't meant to or designed to be like that, but that was the ultimate result. And then he's just getting upfield and he likes to weave his way through traffic. Like having a tight end with real rack ability, a player who can, weave through and pick up yards after the catch, like that has been huge through 2 games. And Gerald Everett he's an important piece of this offense right now. A guy who's going to get the same number of targets, if not more, than Jared Cook did last year. Yeah. So he's really, really come into his own. DeAndre Carter right now looks like the best wide receiver on the roster.
He does.
He is really, really good. Actually, both players have been making some tough catches, him and Gerald Everett. It's been very, very quiet for Josh Palmer. I don't know if we're just not drawing up the right plays for him or are we just like the matchups elsewhere, but it seems like him and Justin Herbert have been kind of out of sync a little bit.
Yeah, I'd say.
There's been some option routes where it looks like Herbert's expecting one thing and he does the other, and they're just not connected the way somebody like him and Keenan Allen have. But DeAndre Carter looks like a player who probably has bounced up the depth chart over Josh Palmer. And he looks like a legit number 2 right now.
He's playing very, very well. It'll be interesting to see how he gets utilized once we get Keenan back. Also, like
even on the kick returns, on punt returns, like he has that feel of just like I either fair catching this or I'm gonna catch this and make a quick move to get out of a guy running full speed at me. I'm gonna go pick up 10 yards. And he's not putting his body on the line, which is really, really important as a punt returner. So like he just has that natural feel of like, I can either catch this and make a move, or I just need to fair catch this. So like his decision-making in that aspect has been really good, and his ability to get upfield, get out of bounds, not take the hit, because he's an important piece of this offense. I'm really curious to see, Keenan Allen is back in 10 days, assuming, that's the assumption, and how if his role has increased from, what it was meant to be at the beginning of the season to what it is now.
It'll be interesting. Yeah, I'm excited because I think it's a good problem to have. Too many mouths to feed. How are we going to scheme everybody up? I think, it'll be a matchup to matchup kind of situation, but I was surprised how little we've seen of Jalen Guyton through 2 games. I don't think he has a catch. I think he had about 4 or 5 snaps last game. I don't remember seeing him last night.
At this point, with how the rise of Carter, I might even dangle him out there as trade bait. See if you can get something in return if you're not going to use him.
Really? Well, yeah. I just don't know.
Because Keenan Allen's going to come back, right? You got Josh Palmer out there. You got DeAndre Carter. And then if you want to, you got Gerald Everett and you got a lot of mouths to feed in this offense, where if he finishes the season with 30 targets, I'd rather get, a 4th round, 5th round draft pick for Jalen Guyton than just let him walk next year for nothing. Because I don't think that we're going to re-sign him, especially if we didn't play him. I think DeAndre Carter is going to play himself out of a contract next year if he keeps it at the same rate he is. So, knowing that you've got your core 3 and looking at your future, there's a lot of mouths to feed where Jalen Guyton kind of is the last guy you're getting thought of right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Too many good football players. I just thought, I don't know. I think his speed gives his offense a little different element, but they obviously have their own plan for.
That's actually part of the issue, though, is Joe Lombardi's play calling hasn't been taking advantage of those deep shots. It was like that last year. Like people were talking like this is a new thing. It's not a new thing.
No, he's conservative. He's conservative. He's a conservative play caller. He'll take his shots here when they present themselves, but he's taking one. He's taking 1.5. Which I think when you have receivers like when we have a quarterback, I think that gives you the ability to, take those 20-yard, 30-yard shots a little more often than normal. You don't have, you're not game planning for Jameis Winston or like a guy who's an inaccurate quarterback who's susceptible to throwing just really bad picks. He's going to throw an incompletion or a big play for you in Justin Herbert. You gotta let the guy.
I think that he's writing up so a lot of people are talking about it like the plays, the play calling is not allowing for it, but the issue is the defenses have been taking it away, and it's been leading to checkdowns. There's been a lot of checkdowns over the last 2 games, and it's because the big play hasn't been there. I mean, they try to drop the big play to Mike Williams. It didn't work. There's been other times where there's been play action shot plays that have led to dump offs. So it's not that he's not playing them. It's that Justin Herbert's just not seeing them open up. And that's the whole reason Joe Lombardi calls these little, 5-yard outs and these little hook routes and all of this short stuff to try to bring the defense in to open up that shot play later. The other thing that'll really help those shot plays, because of the run game not being effective and not being, there is no threat in the run game right now.
Right.
And without that threat, without something to bring and pull the defense in, those deep shots deep down the field aren't going to be there. He got the one-on-one matchup with Mike Williams this week. Last week, he found Keenan Allen on a crosser. But outside of that, a lot of it really just hasn't been there.
Yeah, I guess beyond just calling up the big play, I guess he just seems very predictable to me this year. It seems like, oh yeah, it seems like part of the reason the defense has been so good is because the other team can kind of feel, oh yeah, this is a kind of a big play Joe type of moment. So they kind of adjust. They've been playing us very well, but I just think he has got into this predictable rhythm of dump off, go deep. And I think the defenses are kind of starting to pick up on it because we just don't have, I think our first drives have been phenomenal. Every time we get that ball, Lombardi's first drives, I think throughout these last 2 seasons have been really great. And then it kind of just gets, I don't know if he gets predictable or if he just,
I really didn't see almost any issue with the play calling this game. I thought that there was a couple opportunities where he's looking for the deep shot. I'm looking at a lot of the runs being kind of stretch zone runs. A lot of RPO stuff that really has been Justin Herbert's decision to hand the ball off. Even the really fun one that didn't, it wasn't there, but was the DeAndre Carter screen back to Austin Eckler screen, right? So that was a really interesting play call. Didn't work out. Sometimes those don't always work out, but it was a really creative play for sure. A lot of play action, right? But the play action doesn't work if your run game isn't working. So that's the hard part, is he's trying to set the defense up, but to set the defense up, you gotta get the right part of it fixed, which is the run game, to create those play action throws. The goal line stuff has been a little difficult though. That's probably the area where I think that Joe Lombardi has struggled the most, is finding those mismatches near the goal line, because they're doing it they're getting the third down. They're getting the fourth down. And I think that it's it's coming. It's going to be a rub route, right, by Mike Williams or the big guy, whoever the big guy is that's right there. And then you're going to find, Xander Horvath into the flat. Got lucky there. You're going to go to Gerald Everett off that rub route. You're trying to go outside, and it's just not – it hasn't been efficient enough. We've scored on most of them, but we had that field goal that was like, on the 10-yard line or something like that.
Yeah, also another one of those go for it. Ball up.
Moments,
Let's play football. That one killed me too. We're going to settle for 3 when we got them. That was a bad play.
Last year Brandon Staley said you can't go for 3 there. Like,
no.
You can't, you need 7. So, and just another one of those moments. But I think that the play calling hasn't found what it was meant to find in the red zone. Just hasn't been there. After, the couple tries, it's working enough, but you could be more efficient. You can do a lot of misdirection type stuff near the goal line, which I don't feel like we have. It's been play action to the flats. Every time. Every single time it's been play action to the flats. Even not like you're first and goal from like the 3-yard line, and you're not even taking a chance to run. You got 4 chances to get in the end zone, and you're on the 3-yard line. You're not even going to attempt to run behind your first-round draft pick, Zion Johnson there. It's just been play action to the flats with a rub route. Like, it feels like every play.
Yeah.
And that's getting old. So
head-scratching game, frustrating game. But at the end of the day, we're 1-1 off a short week on the road. That was a tough game. Nothing was – you going into that, I think we were supposed to lose that game, and it sucks because we were a better team for 3.5 quarters of that football game. Credit to the Chiefs. They know how to win those types of games. They know how to grind those out. They didn't play particularly well. They did just enough, and sometimes that's all you need to do. I think it's a learning experience for this team. It's a young team, coaching staff, players included. At the end of the day, you're 1-1 going into an easy part of your schedule. We have a really good football team who hasn't even come close to 100% potential. So that's exciting. We're building towards something special. You're just going to have to hope that Brandon Staley kind of goes back to his roots a little bit, right? I want that we believe in ourselves team that we kind of saw last year. That was intoxicating football to watch.
That's the part that's
I want to get back to
hard
that.
to watch, right? Like, that's the hard part is he built this identity last season, and he's just not that person right now.
Yeah, who are you?
So that's been absolutely hard to see change, because that's what I fell in love with that last year.
I still love it. Yeah. Bring it back. We want
the last thing I want to talk about before we kind of get out of here, I know you probably got to go and get to work. We are going to the easy part of the schedule. You touched on it. We got the Jaguars in 10 days. We have the Texans after that, and then we go to the Broncos October 9th.
I'll be there. Oh, no, that's in Mile High. We play them twice in October?
No. Maybe. I don't know. You're supposed to be at that game. Anyways.
Oh, I am. That is the one?
I'll let you know. But but I'm legitimately thinking about sitting Herbert until October 9th at a minimum, because I'm not really too worried about the Jaguars, and I'm not too worried about the Texans. Granted, we could lose that game with, faulty quarterback play, but it's early enough in the season, and you need your quarterback for the long haul. I don't know what's going to come for x-rays today. Justin Herbert had them last night. I'm assuming we're going to hear about it if it isn't already on Twitter and somebody else has already talked about. But I'm seriously thinking about sitting Justin Herbert, protect him from himself. Sometimes you got to do that. I don't know what's going on there though. So, closing remarks.
Here we go. Buckle up. We got a good football team. Just got to iron some things out, get healthy. I am still very excited. I think we let one go, but that's why you got to play the games. It's a hard sport. Nothing's given to you in this league. And I think it's now our time I think we put the world on notice. It's time to go and prove that we deserve all this media attention. We are as good as our roster says we are. Just got to fine tune some things.
All right. We'll talk to you guys next week. We'll be breaking down the Jaguars, which really is not a good team. So I'm actually excited to get back on track. So
Let's talk about it.
All right.